through a gentleman in the audience tonight that I want to acknowledge. He is one of the people in this room who are more qualified than I to be a police chief, but Captain Rob Webb had a significant part to play in this presentation, and I just want to say publicly how much I appreciate that. Now to regret, Council, coming before you tonight, it is that I waited so long. I think you have deserved what I'm going to present to you tonight for many months. And I, as your chief, share some of the responsibility in not getting this to you earlier. And so when we talk about things like stopping the bleeding, some of that blood is on my hands, and I want to acknowledge that and apologize to you for that before I start. Because you've been beat up in the last few months, and part of what is my motivating factor to come before you tonight is that that is not entirely fair when I am your police chief and it's my responsibility to bring you options. And so that's my goal tonight. I'd like to separate this presentation into three main parts, and all three are significantly important to the future of the community, and but they're also significantly purposefully separated because they're very, very different in nature. First, I owe you an update, a crime update. Chiefs across the state and the country this month are updating their communities on crime, and so that's important to make sure that we do that tonight. And I also want to talk about community safety and the investments that you have made in this police department, in this community. I want to highlight those as well. I think that's important. So as a recap, the last 2 years, this council has pumped $2.3 million in capital improvement dollars over and above what we're funded in the general fund into the police department, a significant investment. In addition to that, in the last 4 years, you have approved staffing and equipment and training grants for a total of $3.2 million investment in your police department, for a grant four-year total of $5.5 million. I thank you on behalf of the department and the community for that. It's significant, and you deserve credit and recognition for that. You also, the question I get more often than not is how many cops do we have on the street today? From council, certainly from staff, and from the community. And so that's what this represents, is your investment in this police department in terms of staffing. You've authorized 67 police officers. We're working diligently, very, very hard to make sure that we get to that goal. We are trying hard. I've got several bets out there as to whether or not we can or can't make that goal by the end of the fiscal year. I have to admit, I was the one who said it probably won't happen, but we're getting very close because I've got a great dedicated staff, and there are people who want to work for this agency who are knocking on our door. Today, the numbers represent 54 fully trained sworn police officers, 5 vacant positions represented in green, 6 are on our FTO program today, and 2 will be starting the academy the first week of May to represent a total sworn staffing of 67. In terms of investment, the logical, rightful question is our investment paying off? Is it worth it? This slide represents what the law enforcement community considers to be the best indicator of the efficiency and effectiveness more than efficiency, but the effectiveness of a police department's use of its resources. So what you're looking at is the Hemet Police Department's crime clearance rate for 2011, violent crime, at about 64% of all violent crime. Now that doesn't mean anything unless we have some perspective. If you're a baseball player, 64% is pretty darn good. You're batting 640, that's not bad. If you're a heart surgeon, 64% is not going to work. The perspective that I bring to you today is the sum total percentage of all other law enforcement agencies in the county of Riverside total about a 42% clearance rate. Your investment in this department is paying off on a day-to-day basis, and I just wanted to highlight that for you. I know that we've talked about clearance rates in the past, but it's a significant and a well-established, in our profession, gauge of effectiveness. So crime rates. It's important to talk about crime rates in communities, but there are several disclaimers. The first disclaimer that I want to make sure that we talk about, that chiefs certainly my former chief, Richard Dana, who's here tonight, and his predecessor, Pete Hewitt, taught me, you take credit for the 1 year that your crime drops. You bought the credit for every year that your crime increases from that day on in your tenure as police chief. And I listen to that, I actually believe in that philosophy. And here's why. Researchers research shows, and certainly the consensus nationwide and certainly worldwide, is that there are hundreds of factors that factor in to a community's crime rate. Hundreds. The top 7 are on the slide, and I just want to talk briefly through those, because I think each one will resonate with you and certainly with our community, and they do certainly with me and my staff. Economic conditions and unemployment rates, a huge factor in determining a community's crime rate. Population density, and whether or not the community is the business and commercial center for its region. I think there's some truth to that with our city. Demographics, median income, and education clearly influence crime and clearly issues all 3 categories that we're dealing with some significant changes in the last few years. Distressed neighborhoods, the presence of distressed neighborhoods and the proliferation of distressed neighborhoods. Hemet Rocks is a phenomenal program to address that issue, but we still have an abundance of distressed neighborhoods that are contributing to our crime rates. Living conditions and community stability, the accessibility of drugs and alcohol in the community, and lastly, the overpopulation of what the researchers call criminal class. In different countries, that means different things. Certainly, in California, it means AB 109, and I promise you, that's the second to last time you'll hear that term in this presentation. We've heard enough about AB 109. So, knowing what factors factor into crime rates, this represents California's 20-year crime trend. When you superimpose California's violent crime trend over total crime trend, you see a definite trend line over 20 years of decreasing crime in the state of California. Hemet is not any different than that. The blue line represents Hemet's violent crime rate over the past 20 years. Now, I don't like the way it looks. It's squiggly, it's not consistent, it's not straight, all that stuff bothers me for a variety of reasons. But the fluctuation in that blue line is simply due to the fact that there's a smaller sample in the area. We're comparing a very small sample of crime to a very large sample of crime, so the trend lines are different. But generally speaking, you see the 2 dips are about the same place as California's crime, and you see a trend that has trended generally downward for at least the last 10 years. The area I'd like to talk about just briefly is the last 4 years, 2009-2012, where we are starting to see a separation between California's violent crime rate and Hemet's violent crime rate. And we'll talk about some of the contributing factors there. 2 categories of crime are reported to the FBI, the Uniform Crime Report, each year: property crime and violent crime, or it's also referred to as persons crime, crimes against persons. Both of those crime categories have increased fairly significantly for our community over the last 4 years. But I want to talk about why that is and what specific category of crime has increased and some of the concerns that we have about that. So within property crime, our burglary rate has increased 28.8%. This is significant in and of itself. Property crimes are on the increase countywide, statewide, nationwide. That's a fact. The thing that concerns me as a police chief is the split between commercial burglaries and residential burglaries. Historically, that number was about 40% commercial residential burglaries and about 60% commercial burglaries. That has shifted over the last 4 or 5 years to about 60% commercial residential and 40% commercial. Why is that significant? 2 reasons. The first is it increases the community's fear of crime. That's the first time you'll hear me say that term, and we'll get to a little more meat about that in a few minutes. But a community's fear of crime is as important, if not more important to me as a police chief, as our community's actual crime. When a business is burglarized, it's significant. But the whole neighborhood doesn't hear about it. People don't talk about it when they're barbecuing in the neighborhood, that residence in a residential community is burglarized, it has a significant impact, and people repeat that, and it's talked about, and it's posted on social media, and it increases the perception of crime in the community. So it's a concern to us that we've had that switch from commercial to residential. The other piece of these burglaries, and we'll find the same in robberies when we talk about those, the other piece to that is there's a different person committing burglary in the city of Hemet. Our criminal element is changing. It's the criminal who is burglarizing a home, occupied or not, as opposed to breaking the glass on a business downtown on a weekend and getting in and getting out. That's a different psyche, it's a different criminal that we're paying attention to and we're concerned about. On the violent crime side, violent crime is up 13.6%, which is a tick higher than average countywide. And I'll show you on the next slide that there's a pretty substantial reason why that rate went up like it did. But you see it was all, the vast majority, in fact, all of the increase in violent crime occurred in 2011. So the question is why? The robbery component of the violent crime increased 31.1%, shocking on its face. We are seeing the same shift in the type of criminal committing robberies. It's not the same person, by the way, it's a different criminal. But our robbery suspects are 60% armed robberies compared to 40% strong arm robberies, which means no weapon was used. That trend has changed, the same as our burglaries have, about 40% to 60% over the last 5 years. The majority of the increase in our robbery rate, however, was due to one robbery suspect that we tagged or renamed the Sweet and Style robbery. The Sweet and Style robberies. A large number of our increases. The actual number of increases on our robberies for that year were 127 in 2011 to 160 in during the 2020. I'm sorry, 127 in 2010 to 2011, and 160 in the following year, where you see the jump. A significant number of those robberies were committed by one individual that was arrested by a regional task force, certainly participated in by our police detectives. So, significant, but understandable and explainable in the robbery category. So that's the picture of crime in the last 4 years, and certainly in the last 20 years. The significance of the fear of crime is something that's really become important to me as a police chief and to our police department. And there is not a lot of research on this fear of crime. It's something that I think we can all identify with. Certainly, we understand the impact of shared personal experiences on fear of crime. If you're at breakfast with your breakfast club and two of the people talk about the fact that their homes were burglarized in the last 2 weeks, your own sense of fear for being burglarized tends to rise. That's happening at a higher rate in communities all across the country, but certainly in Hemet, where personal or shared experiences are being shared more frequently through the media and social networks. That concerns us because we believe our community's fear of crime is higher than it should be, based on the actual crime. And we want to address that as a police department. The negative effect, research shows that the negative effect of the fear of crime on health and well-being of individuals and communities is substantial. We see some of that happening to our community, the health and well-being of our community, certainly of individuals within our community. The fear of crime can reduce trust within neighborhoods by weakening the sense of community. Again, I think we're seeing some of that in our community with some of the dynamics that we're seeing. So the 4 issues that Stafford and other researchers concluded in 2007 with a broad sample of survey was that there's 4 main issues that contribute to an individual's report of an increase in their fear of crime. Some of them are surprising, some not so. But I'd like for you to consider our community when we go through these. Dangerous driving, the #1 indicator for people in this study that their fear of crime was rising, was observing and experiencing dangerous driving. #2 was vandalism, graffiti, and property damage, seeing graffiti and those kinds of things. That's a very important thing to us. 49% of the survey sample. House break-ins, very understandable. that is clearly a violation, and it's clearly scary to hear that houses are being broken into. And 4 is the perceived presence of gangs. I think most of us, if we were given those 4, would probably have inverted them in terms of our own belief about what would cause our fear of crime to increase. But that was a very large sample study, and it's significant to us. The short-term action plan that I'd like to go in now addresses all 4 of those areas very aggressively. And that's why I thought it was significant that we talk about the fear of crime and what it means to a community and consider those 4 indicators. I believe that our most pressing issue is our fear of crime. And I also believe that our best opportunity for community revival is an immediate attack on the issues that contribute to our individual fear of crime, which I believe is unleashed. Now, at the end, I'm going to tell you our goals here are to decrease actual crime by 10% within 18 months. The more aggressive approach is I want to decrease our community's sense of fear of crime by 25% in 18 months. And the only way we can do that is to gather data. So I'm going to propose that very early in the next fiscal year, and we have a funding source for this, that we do a community-wide survey that will draw, I think, extremely valuable information from our community so that we can use it. One of those things I'd like to survey is our community's fear of crime. And there are academic folks who are definitely interested in working with us in that respect in surrounding universities. So, part 2, the action plan. The immediate action plan is designed to stop the bleeding. If we were to use a battlefield analogy, the soldier is wounded, the soldier is bleeding, we need to get in and we need to stop the bleeding and we need to get that person off the battlefield. The second phase will be the long-term care of that wounded soldier. So in terms of stopping the bleeding, my first proposal tonight is that the council authorize staff to move forward with the immediate hiring of retired police officers with 5 or more years experience and current post-certification for a limited duration. This will provide us a resource, a very valuable resource to do, if you will, back office work, but cold case investigation, specialized investigations, background investigations, and crime analysis work. There are so many police officers in this community who are fully capable of working and who retired for a variety of reasons with still a lot of drive to do this work. And I'm recommending tonight that we go out and hire a minimum of 5 of those on a part-time basis for the 12-month period. That will increase our investigations staffing by 30%. Very significant. Approximate cost $208,000. My second recommendation tonight is to authorize the city manager to enter into a cooperative agreement with the California Highway Patrol to provide traffic enforcement and investigation during the peak hours when we know traffic accidents and injury accidents are occurring on State Route 74, Florida Avenue, the gateway to our community, for a period of 12 months. There is precedent for this. It's happening in various communities around the state. Stockton and Oakland are 2 of those. Police chief at Oakland is a friend of mine. We've discussed the plan that they have. He raves about it. We've made preliminary contact with the Highway Patrol. We will need your authority, certainly, to go any further with a cooperative agreement. We're very excited about this. The other piece of this is not just the additional, by the way, community. They've assured me it's a zero-tolerance policy, so fair warning. When they come in, they have no mercy, they take no prisoners. So
I remember Officer Tony has zero tolerance also.
We will be reaching out to Officer Tony for the other piece that this provides this community is high visibility uniform presence and deterrent on Florida Avenue. Florida First Initiative is alive and well. We're still doing it. We haven't reported back to you recently on it, but this is right in line with our initiative to clean up our main corridor, the gateway to our community. And this relieves Hemet police officers who would be out directing traffic and taking reports reports and writing citations to go back into their beats, into our community, and do proactive policing. The value of this is about 2,080 hours per year of directed enforcement, and the cost is approximately, and I don't want to be tied to this because we aren't to the stage where we're negotiating, but the CHP has been very, very gracious and interested in partnering with us in this respect, and we think we're going to get a sweet deal, so I'll leave you with that. The next initiative is the result of an 18-year cooperative regional relationship with the City of Marietta. Marietta Police Department and Hemet Police Departments have operated a joint regional SWAT team for 18 years. It's an extremely progressive and valuable and successful cooperative agreement. We have negotiated with them to provide a crime suppression effort in both cities. It'll certainly be a reciprocal relationship because there will be no money exchange. We're already working together, we train together, we do SWAT operations together. This effort will focus on retail centers and crime hotspots. We know through our crime analysis, through some of the infrastructure that you provided us in the last couple of years, we know where the crime is occurring. The frustrating thing is our police officers can't get there without being distracted by calls for service. This will give us the opportunity. And by the way, our officers will be partnered with Marietta officers. You won't see Marietta police officers working independently in our city. That's important to both departments. Same thing when we reciprocate and work in their city. Again, no cost to either department because of the mutual aid agreement that we have. I just want to make sure that we highlight the incredible work being done by both our regional gang task force, Region 3. Their annual report just came out again, and Region 3 continues to perform very, very well. We try not to make it a competitive thing, but they outperform every other region in most categories. The sergeant and leader of that team is Sergeant Matt Hess. He's in the back. I appreciate you being here, Matt. I would just encourage you to continue your commitment to both those task forces. The AB 109 task force is interested in relocating to the valley. That's a very, very significant piece to what they do. Currently, as you know, we provide a sergeant, but that task force covers everything from Indio to Banning Pass, all the way down to Marietta. We have obtained funding to the state to increase the teams from 2 to 3. So essentially, we are forming a central county team. We'll partner with several other agencies, and we are pushing hard, and I would appreciate your support in trying to relocate that task force to the valley. There's a significant benefit to housing the task force and supervising the task force within your community. We'll continue our efforts, but we will look to you for support in that effort. The Region 3 Gang Task Force Board of Directors has authorized the Gang Task Force to do monthly saturation patrols, which is when the task forces from the region come together and put out a high-impact enforcement sweep. You've seen several of these publicized recently. The value of that over a period of a year is 7,230 hours of directed enforcement. The force multiplier with the Gang Task Force is unbelievable. You know when they're out there because you cannot drive 2 blocks without seeing, hopefully not meeting personally, but seeing a police officer. Those are great ongoing commitments, and we just want to highlight those and encourage you to continue to support them. And thank you for your support of the 2 task forces that we participate in. To summarize the immediate action plan, this plan generates 17,906 additional enforcement hours on the streets of this valley. That is the functional equivalent of 10 police officers in addition to what we currently have. That is a phenomenal number, and the impact on crime and safety is yet to be seen. This is the only reason I am confident in bringing you the 2 goals that we'll conclude with tonight. A 10% reduction in crime and a 25% reduction in the fear of crime. The high visibility leads to a reduction in the fear of crime. It's proven to be the case. And it's a one-time expenditure, this is very important, with no long-term or additional purge or pension liability. Councilmember Milne, thank you for this mock. I know this is an issue for you, but you're not alone. This is an issue Every government agency is talking about this. What this does for a short period of time is increase the level of enforcement on the street and the deterrence with no additional long-term liability or obligation. And effectively, this plan will stop the bleeding. Part 3. The short-term plan is as important as the hospital stay and the care plan for a patient as the initial life-saving action. The long-term piece of this is as important. I was encouraged to find an acronym, so I did. I believe in it. And I believe this piece of this presentation, this work study, represents Hemet's option for policing excellence. The first recommendation of the long-term plan for stability and revitalization is that the council adopt and establish a long-term staffing goal for the police department. I have been out in front in frankly, with the suspicion of my colleagues, if I can say that, other police chiefs don't think this is a good idea. I don't believe there's a magic number for a community. I don't believe any community can say this will stop with this number of police officers because of the first thing we talked about, the effects of crime. The factors in the community that affect crime are not all under the control of your police department. But I do believe that based on my 20 years of policing this valley, that there is a significant need for additional resources on the streets of the city. The immediate action plan is a stopgap. It's stopping the bleeding. The long-term plan needs to include 14 additional police officers in 18 months. These police officers would be dedicated to crime suppression and prevention, specific targeted enforcement officers to deal with those issues that are plaguing our community. And I think the community needs to hear from me, frankly, at some point, what these people will be doing specifically, because the next piece of this is who's going to pay for it. We know that this will have a significant impact on crime. 2 quotes I'd like to give you. to address the reality that this city does not have the resources to add 14 police officers today. Let me give you my philosophy. This is not popular in my community, I'll tell you that right now. I do not believe that it's wise to hire full-time, long-term employees with one-time monies. Why do I believe that? Because we just lived the result of that. It is not fun to sit down with a father of 6 and hand him a slip saying, you will no longer have a job in 6 weeks. I don't ever want to do that again as your police chief. However, my favorite city manager, and I'm very confident in saying that because all 5 I've worked for have said the same thing to me. Every police chief will tell you your current city manager is your favorite city manager, period. So I agree. There is no question, and I don't think we should be shy as a community in saying that we are the only police department, we are the only city with a municipal police department in the county that does not have some form of supplemental revenue. It doesn't exist anymore. But this is who we are. And we have to come to grips with it. I would also like to quote our community. This is a paraphrase of many, many people who got to this podium and pounded their fist and said, let us put our collective heads together and figure out how to pay for it. I encourage this council to set the priority and set the staffing goal, turn to your community and let them decide if they want to provide the funding for this initiative. I almost feel like I should pause and take questions there, but I'm trying to respect your time. The second piece of the long-term plan is just as important. The Hemet General Plan calls for a strategic plan for the police department. I have been in violation, Deanna, of the general plan now for 2.5, almost 3 years. We've started the process. We've done the very initial phases of strategic planning. But for any healthy organization, it's an important thing to do. I want to just make sure that you understand I take responsibility for that. This is our job as a leader of this organization. It's my job to make sure this happens. I would encourage the council to direct staff, me, to initiate the strategic planning process, to identify the community's policing expectations and priorities, another piece of the survey element. This includes community surveys, focus groups. We establish short and long-term goals and objectives, and we establish and determine what the community's long-term strategic objectives are for its police department. This is the sole purpose of our strategic plan, in my opinion, is to strengthen community trust and confidence in the organization. I would recommend that you put a due date on us, on me, to have this to you by the fall of 2014. So a summary of the second piece, the long-term stability piece, will certainly improve employee recruitment and retention. It enhances community sense of safety and security. It will reduce crime and the fear of crime, and it repositions our community as a safe, attractive, and desirable community. Finally, it strengthens the Hemet Police Department's position, the city's position, as a foundation for regional policing opportunities. If you will indulge me for a moment, this isn't fair for me to do this because many people in this room, certainly those on the dais, many in this room, have been accused of things over the last several months and not had an opportunity to set the record straight. I happen to have the microphone now, and I don't think you're going to take it from me, so I'd like to talk about it. Certainly on the authority. That logo is the California Police Chiefs, Association of Police Chiefs, 2013 regional conference. It was held in Palm Springs, hosted by those 5 police chiefs. The motto was regionalizing today for a better tomorrow. Many people have said, unfortunately, that Dave Brown will protect the status quo at all costs for the sake of saving his department. That is not true. I believe it's time for this police department in this city to jump in to the concept of regionalization. It is no longer acceptable to pull back into your corner and say, we've always done it this way, there's no other way to police, and we're going to continue to trudge along the way we've been doing it. But I need to be very clear. Regionalization is not contracting your service to a larger agency. Because I believe this council jointly agrees with that philosophy. I firmly believe that that's what you believe is the right way to go. This is a term that we've used for several years now. I want to get you off the hook. I want to let you know I am a regional thinking police chief. The examples of that are our participation in our task forces, our 18-year regional SWAT team. Back in the mid-90s, we realized we can't afford or justify a sole department SWAT team. It takes a ton of money and a ton of training and a ton of resources. We reached out to a great police organization and said, will you partner with us? It's been a wonderful relationship. I participated in a seminar with my colleagues at this conference, and we talked about that very issue. They think it's a new idea. Your police force and Marietta's have been doing it for 18 years. It's now the trend. We're proud of that. I believe that you believe in this concept, and I want to help you get there. I just want to throw that out and make sure that the record's straight. I'm not looking to protect status quo. We need to think forward. We need to think in terms of regional problems, issues, and certainly in regional approaches to policing. So, I told you I'd put it on paper. This is aggressive for any police department to take a stand and say we are going to reduce crime at all is aggressive. But I've been encouraged by my own staff, certainly by council, and by my boss to set aggressive goals. A 10% reduction in crime in 18 months is almost unattainable. I believe the combination of these two plans will get us there. To reduce the fear of crime in this community by 1% would give me tremendous satisfaction, because I know, as you do, the fact that when people go to coffee in the morning, they tell us, I know you know this, they tell us, we talk about our fear of being burglarized. We talk about our fear of being robbed at the store. We talk about our fear of losing our belongings, of being victimized. We need to change that in our community. We've got to get to a point where we have a real picture of what crime is in this community, and that we don't have an overemphasized fear of crime. That's your police department's job. And we, by putting that in writing, we take full responsibility for that, and we're ready for that challenge. So to summarize the recommendations, what we're asking of you today is to direct staff to initiate the rehire of certified police officers, to direct staff to negotiate the CHP cooperative agreement, to establish a sworn staffing goal of 18 additional officers in 18 months, 14 additional in 18 months, to direct staff to initiate the police department's strategic planning process, and to direct staff to prepare a long-term departmental stabilization program so that we can continue to provide superior protection and service to our community. It is a pleasure to come before this council. It is an honor to serve in this capacity and to lead these men and women who make up the Hemet Police Department. I appreciate your attentiveness, your time, and I'll certainly entertain any questions.
Dave, you guys met over 2 days now, and talking over some of this. And one of the things that you and I have we've had a heart-to-heart discussion was, conversation always came up, well, let's just hire so many officers. And to your credit, you always tell me, I can't just do that, because I know I'm going to have to lay them off a year or two down the road when we go broke by just seeing arbitrarily hired officers. The first part of this plan is fantastic. I mean, you're going to get us the equivalent of 10 officers under $500,000 as a one-time stopgap measure, and that's the kind of thinking that we need here. So that I like. It's a fantastic idea. Gives us an opportunity to go ahead and breathe for a moment and figure out what the next step is to go ahead and pursue some of the other options that you have here. So I, for one, I'm absolutely in favor of the plan here. First question, have you already had initial conversations at all with CHP? I know you gave the authorization, but what has been so far the tone and the mood in terms of getting something like this with CHP? And how quickly do you think they would get on board with something like that?
My conversation has been with the area commander. That person does not have the authority to authorize this plan. However, his name's Captain Gregory Peck, which I love. Captain Peck has been in contact with the Border Division Chief, who has been in contact with the CHP Commissioner, who's assured him that the governor wants to look at this plan. The Commissioner has to approve every one of these cooperative agreements himself. In this particular case, Governor Brown is very familiar, unfortunately, with our community. He was the Attorney General in 2009 when we were under attack, when we were plagued with that individual's wrath or whatever it was. The Attorney General Brown at the time was very aware and continues to be very aware of the plight of Hemet. The Commissioner has said he wants to be involved in this. To me, that's tacit approval. They want to help our community. So I've been at the area commander level. It's certainly secondhand. The city manager has been very gracious in indulging me in the conversations about this, and I think he's excited and willing to partner on that endeavor. And there's precedent for it throughout the state. So the timeline, he can't commit to. These kinds of things can move fairly quickly. I certainly think that with our local Senator Emerson, we have some ability to get these kinds of things moved fairly quickly. My goal on all of this is to implement at very latest by July 1st. I think we can get the CHP agreement in place before that.
Okay, and then the second piece of the measure then would hiring back some of the 960s. Now, a couple questions that, are those going to be necessarily just restricted to retired Hemet police officers? Not necessarily, would it be just whoever's available?
Absolutely not. Like with any recruiting effort, Mayor, we in our business, it's best to spend your resources on people you know. So certainly we would reach out to people that we know. That plan is not limited to Hemet police officers. There are retired police officers, qualified, eager in our community, who've worked for other agencies in the county and certainly in the state. The only requirement would be that they have a minimum 5 years and that they have a current post certificate so that there's not a lot of investment in retraining. And we believe we'll fill those 5 spots.
So we're not going to necessarily hold out for returning officers. We're going to just go. We're going to find our officers.
We need those boots on the ground, and we will be aggressive about that.
To solve the revenue problem is you put Tony back on a bike. He's taking a lot of money.
Yeah, he has a reputation. And I think he may be available. So.
That's the good news and the bad news, right?
And I want you just to reiterate this, because we know, all of us know, we go through these budget workshops and go through the labor pains of years of caliper obligations. There is no caliper obligations tied to this, correct? I mean, this is
absolutely
free and clear. One time, that part I like the most is the problem we're facing, 50% of it going out to retired folks. That's money that we can't use to hire actual officers. So I like
and we're not even supplementing anyone's retirement because the CHP has agreed to do their operation on a straight time, overtime basis. So those are not PERSable hours that they'll be working. And certainly the retired employees will not get any benefits. That's why it's a quote 960 relationship. They're not entitled to benefits of any kind. They don't like it. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Dave. We've had same conversations over the past few days, and I just want to say your commitment and your passion for this community and wanting to police this community in a way that people are satisfied is admirable. And I respect and admire your dedication, how you are solely committed to this community to make this a safer place. And you proved that in the packet because you repeated the slide that said 10% reduction in 25%. So way to go.
I'm trying to hold myself down.
Hey, a couple of questions. Post-certifications. Is this something that these retired officers will go back and recertify? Explain a little bit what that means and what the requirements are during this process.
The post-certificate, the certificate that gives you the authority in the state of California to work as a sworn officer for a post-approved agency has a 3-year life. Excuse me. So if you leave police work for 3 years and a day, your certificate expires. There is a process to go back and reinstitute that certificate, but anyone who's been retired less than 3 years and left with a valid post certificate is hireable with full certification. So there will be no downtime with those folks. And certainly they'd be the ones we'd go after first in a recruiting mode.
So these guys would be fully qualified in a sense if you had to put a gun and a badge on them and hit the streets for an emergency. That wouldn't be their primary duty. It'd be most cold case, back office. But if push came to shove and you needed those boots immediately on the street, they're fully certified to do that.
I grin when you say that because the people we have in mind, we won't be able to keep them off the street.
I got it. That's
They'll be
taking the gun and the badge away is going to be.
But just to clarify, they will be fully sworn police officers working on a part-time basis. They will have the same authority as the person that they're working with or behind. So, but again, the characters we're talking about, you won't be able to keep them from the streets. They love this community. They want to serve on the front line, so to speak. But we'll do our best.
Dave, I think you're right. This was a long time coming, and thank you for being honest and on the front side and saying this should have been done months ago. But that doesn't matter. It's being presented to us tonight. That's what's important. So I want to thank you for that. I think this council is looking for all the options possible because each and every year we fight the battle. How are we going to pay for the things we want to provide to this community? I think tonight you've given us some very viable options, and so I want to thank you for that because the more opportunities we have to better police this community, and I know that's your heart, and your community policing model believer, and that's what you want to lead with, and I respect you for that, David. Thank you for giving us alternatives, that you are looking not just at keeping our police department effective, but how can we have a greater impact with an effective department into our region. So thank you for the broadness of your presentation to us today.
First of all, it goes without question, commend you and your staff for providing such an aggressive and viable strategic plan. And I think it's something that not only the council, but the community has long awaited for, and has such a positive, I think we all sit here with such a positive feeling as to what it can accomplish. So you must, if you say the long-term plan would require approximately 14 officers in 18 months, you must have an idea of how many you think you can get pretty soon, or within, and certainly within the Hemet retired policemen, and also those from other agencies, but you must have an idea, otherwise you wouldn't have said 18 months. So,
yeah, if you'd like me to respond to that, there, a quick example that I became aware of today, actually I sent an email on it. The city of San Bernardino is having significant issues. There are 8 to 12-year veterans at that department who are looking to find a department where they can go and spend the rest of their career. We attended a recruiting fair. We gave out 30 applications. We didn't receive one back. The underlying issue with those folks that you've all encouraged me to be aggressive about going out and finding the experienced officers, they're looking for a place where they can spend the rest of their career. So the stability issue is absolutely key to those people who we intend to go out and find and recruit to come to work for us.
and it's actually why you brought that up, because of that email you sent out, which was very disheartening from one standpoint. But this certainly gives us a lot of encouragement as to how we can move forward and bring this crime issue that we're experiencing, as you say, stop bleeding. Thank you for your presentation.
Very good presentation. Thank you so much, and thank you to all of the men and women who serve the city of Hemet and the community. A couple questions on the CHP. You have it in here as the Florida Highway 74 corridor. Will they do Highway 79 also? Gotta ask.
I don't even know where Highway 79 is anymore. Right?
The more important question is, will you build 79?
They'll be on a dirt field on the west end of town looking for speeders if we show them the map. But we haven't asked them to do that. I think there is a significant amount of work to be done on Florida Avenue. We could certainly go there. I would like to start with Florida and stay concentrated on State Route 74 and just take it back.
On that, and this is kind of probably what you refer to as a nitpicky question, but it piqued my curiosity when you were talking about that, with CHP doing the work on Highway 74, which I think is great. It's their state highway, let them take care of it. Will our volunteers be able to interact with them on traffic control for accidents and that kind of stuff?
Great question. A huge piece of regionalization in our business is communications. Fortunately, CHP has the capability, as does our dispatch center, to communicate. So that's one of the reasons they're so attractive to us, is they are not, they maintain the same radio band that we have, and they're accessible on a day-to-day basis to our dispatch center and officer to officer. So they will work, the plan is that we will continue to work side by side. And certainly if there was, for example, a major accident, our volunteer forces and certainly police sworn officers if needed would be able to be there. It's not like we're going to say, oh, that's CHP, go around and touch it. But yes, communications are in place.
Okay. And, continuing with agreements with Marietta, this is being said facetiously, they have some of our officers that might as well work here.
Thank you.
So we'll get done with that one. And how will you get the AB 109 relocation headquarters here in town? I mean, is that just an internal process that you work with the surrounding agencies?
Well, couple answers to that. The governing body is the Riverside County Police Chiefs Association. I'm the designee to the AB 109 task force. So I make the day-to-day decisions about the task force operations. However, as a courtesy, we're throwing out the locations to all the chiefs to chime in on. It makes sense, regionally it makes sense to put the task force in Valley for all the wrong reasons. We have an overabundance and certainly a higher percentage than any other community, including the unincorporated area in San Jacinto. About 3% of the county's population, but about 10 or 12% of the county's AB 109 probationers. So we've made the case. My colleagues are very open to moving it here. What I would come back to council, obviously through the city manager, is if we identify a facility that the city either owns or can help us acquire, we would definitely be aggressive about that.
And I will just end with that by saying thank you again. I think this is very aggressive. I appreciate the use of extra boots on the street without the added burden attached to it. Using seasoned veterans and CHP, I think, is a phenomenal idea, and just wish we thought of it sooner. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Shelley?
Yes. Remember when you asked me what I liked about Peppermint? Like you too. Because I know that was a very short list. And thank you so much. I know when I first came on to council, I asked you, I think, for a myriad of reports. And I think I was looking for this kind of thing, and so thank you. So now I can finally have something to go on instead of just status quo. A couple of questions that I had for you. The additional 128 hours of crime suppression effort with the Marietta Police Department. Here's my concern. If it's additional, there's no extra cost. Is this using extra guys? I mean, you guys are already tired. I fear, fatigue. How are we going to get to that 128? Why wasn't it done sooner? Do you see what I'm saying?
Sure,
I'm not trying to be
I understand.
rude, but
It's a daily concern for us. The workload that our officers are carrying, not just on their regular days, but on their days off, and our detective bureau, and our school resource officers who are also working patrol on their days off, is a constant concern for me and my staff. That burnout is life and death in our business. It's not just you don't like your job anymore. It's critical to stay focused. However, this program is important enough to say we will commit those resources, and it would be overtime, by the way. We do not have the resources to commit full-time people to that operation. So when we schedule an operation based on crime analysis, Marietta officer would partner with a Hemet officer and would go out what we call 10-8 together and police. It would be on an overtime basis. Now, the reciprocal piece of this, the agreement is that would come when there's a need in Marietta for it. It may not be this year, it may not be this fiscal year, but there will be a time when Marietta needs a similar operation, and we will reciprocate. Just like our SWAT team works. The majority of the call-outs are in our community. There is no expectation that there'll be some balance in that respect. So, yes, I appreciate you being aware and concerned and asking about the well-being of those police officers who are out there, because it wears on us. But I would not propose that if I didn't know that was attainable and that was a doable program.
okay, that's my big fear with the extra hours and with the staff that you currently hold out. And once again, when we go into the game task force, is this, I know you said no additional cost, ongoing commitment. Is this just because they haven't really geared up for this, or how much extra is this game task force, the game task force in the AB 109, how much more can we expect to see with that?
That's the piece of this that I didn't wait for. Because it's an existing relationship, an existing task force, we pulled the trigger on that months ago. Sergeant Hess took the initiative to coordinate regional, what they call saturation patrols. And again, the other task forces in the region come and cooperate and participate here, and the reciprocal effect is we go there. The beauty of the gang task force is when we go there, we have one paid employee. Sergeant Hess is supervising his team during that operation, but the receiving community gets 40 to 60 law enforcement officers. When we host them, we do have additional Hemet police officers work the event, work the activity, but that relationship is ongoing. The only difference is the board has approved an additional saturation patrol per month in our community.
That's my,
Yes.
that's my issue.
Over and above,
Another one.
right, over and above their normal operations. They're still working 4, 5, sometimes 6 days a week, and this is in addition to that.
Okay, great. And, okay, those are my only couple of questions. Again, thank you for providing the options, and thank you so much for Friday night and right along.
You got it.
Get to see you guys in action, and even though there wasn't a whole lot of action,
Right.
you know, but I guess that's a good thing, because I think you guys did a good job.
Thanks.
You're scared. Thank you.
Okay, so,
Just a couple of caveats for you on two of these items, but if you have other discussions.
No, go ahead.
On item one, I just want the council to be clear. Remember, since we're a PERS agency, we can't hire PERS annuitants or retirees. We have to comply with all the PERS rules. And that may shrink the pool of people that you can hire. You can't hire somebody who just retired until 180 days out. You can only hire them for 960 hours in either a calendar year or fiscal year. There are some special exceptions that may like to extend that time. And they can't have retired on a disability or industrial retirement. Given those caveats, we'll be happy to work with the chief. The other item is the negotiation of a contract with CHP. Unfortunately, I'm not privy to exactly the scope of that or what services are going to be involved, but we need to talk with the chief and the city manager about whether that triggers meet and confer obligations. Same thing with item number one, since these are services that could be provided by the HPOA and the HMA, Hemet Police Officer Association, and the Police Management Association. Now, I don't know that we need a full-blown confer process. I'm assuming that your groups are going to welcome these with open arms, but we at least need to have some kind of dialogue, maybe an informal meeting with them to get the blessing. So we'll have to do that prior to any further real serious negotiations with that, and before a contract comes back. I'm sure we can take care of that pretty quickly. I'll work with the chief to get it.
That's it. Okay. Well, I think we've got support here from the council to bring this back. So, I think it's unanimous. We'll get back to agreements. Let's get the ball rolling.
You got it?
Good job.
Thank you all.